Well, earlier today, NASCAR released the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series schedule, and it was definitely very interesting and very proactive. And I gotta give props to NASCAR for having the nerve to actually go out there and do something like this. Now, while I don't agree with all the decisions they made, one thing I think everybody needs to think about and remember when observing this schedule is logistics. Of course, all these tracks are under contract until the end of next season, so they kind of had a small amount of room to make all these decisions. So, this is what we end up with. Now, some of these decisions I don't understand, but some of them I do get, and I think Steve O'Donnell did clarify some of these decisions a lot better than I could, and, overall, the schedule actually makes quite a bit of sense. So I'm going to go through all the changes, give my thoughts on the changes, and why I thought the changes occurred, and what I like about the changes, and what I don't like about the changes. So we're going to just start at the top of the schedule. Of course, nothing changes for speed weeks, which is good. You don't want to change that. There's no race before the Daytona 500. I don't think there needs to be. And, everything stays pretty normal there. But already with the second race of the season, and I actually do like this because Atlanta's not really the best place to have the second race of the season. They actually just skip Atlanta and they go straight to Las Vegas instead. And that is a great idea because they just get that West Coast swing out of the way and Atlanta becomes a little bit later on in the season. Surprisingly, Atlanta's in the old spot it used to be in before it lost its first date a few years ago at the top of the decade. But we'll get to that in a moment. Auto Club Speedway moves to the third race of the season, and I think that is a result of ISM saying they did not want to change their date because they are still the fourth race of the season. But either way, it doesn't really matter with the West Coast swing. They're all out west. Weather should not be an issue, and I think they did a pretty good job with that. Atlanta got moved down a little bit later on in the schedule, which is definitely beneficial. By March, the weather should be a lot better down there. Rain, you never know what's going to happen, but it's probably a pretty good idea to move that, and definitely listen to the fans on that one, moving that race a little bit later. It could definitely stand to be even later in the schedule, but it's still at a good spot. Race 5 of the season, I think that's a good place to have it. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Homestead got taken off as the finale, and I'll get to that once we talk about the ISM Raceway finale here in a moment. But Homestead is now the fifth race, the sixth race of the season, right after Atlanta. I think it would have made a little more sense for Homestead to actually flip with Atlanta because I believe that the 12 Hours of Sebring is that very weekend. So find that a little bit interesting that they scheduled that there, but I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. Sebring and Miami are still quite a ways away from each other. I don't see much of an effect there. However, that does hurt the Speedway a little bit. I don't think they're going to get as much of an attendance with it just being a normal race compared to the finale. Texas is the next race. Nothing changing there. Bristol's the next race. And this is one thing nobody is talking about, but it absolutely frustrates me, is Richmond is now going to be a day race again. I don't like that. I always thought that Richmond looked great under the lights, but apparently they can't make up their mind with the first race, and it's now a day race again, which I don't like. I never really liked the day race they had there a couple of years ago. I think it's much better under the lights, but you know what? Ratings-wise, it helps a little bit if it is a day race, so I guess I understand that part of the situation there. We got Talladega and Dover next, nothing changing there. This one is by far the best change on the schedule. This is something that everyone was asking for, and it was a night race at Martinsville, and they got it, and they got it at a good time, too. Mother's Day weekend, they're pushing out Kansas, but that is the absolute perfect time to have that race. It's during, springtime, the weather should be great, under the lights, who doesn't like that, and it's Martinsville Speedway, which, usually is a pretty good race. I don't know how it's going to race next year with whatever aero package you'll have next year or whatever, but I think that's something a lot of fans wanted, and NASCAR definitely listened to them. Hey, they do listen to you guys, by the way. NASCAR definitely listened to the fans there and put Martinsville in a slot where they could have a night race, and give them major props for doing that. All-Star race still the same, Coke 600 still the same, of course. Kansas gets moved to May 31st on a Sunday, and that's actually a good thing. It's going to be a hot, slick racetrack, and we know how Chicagoland worked last year. I don't know how a hot, slick racetrack is going to work with the new aero package or whatever, but that should be a pretty fun race. Michigan's next in line, Sonoma's next in line, then Chicagoland. Nothing changing there. Then this is one of the biggest ones here, and I'm one of the few people that actually likes this because think it is huge for the fans who stay that whole entire weekend. The fans have much more of a reason to go to that place, and not many people tend to realize that Pocono is actually one of the best attended racetracks on the circuit. There is no way NASCAR is going to get rid of that racetrack if people are actually showing up. You got to think it's the closest racetrack to New York City, the biggest city in the country. And that's why they don't want to get rid of Pocono, and that's why they remain with 2 races. I do definitely give them props for trying this one out. I think a doubleheader is a great idea. Only thing is, I hope they shorten the races to maybe 300 miles. With having 2 400-mile races right after each other like that, I don't think it's a good idea. 300 miles is good. It's not too short. It's not too long. That's how Pocono should be to begin with. It doesn't need to be a long race there. As long as they do that, it'll be a great weekend, and I applaud them for making that decision. It is a great decision, in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to that. I might try to attend that next year. That seems like something I would definitely love to go to. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, something I don't like, and most other people do not like this. However, when you think about what Steve O'Donnell said in the announcement earlier today, they didn't really have any other choice here, and we'll get to Daytona here in a moment, but Indianapolis moves to the July 4th weekend. I'm one of those people, one of those few people that kind of just wants Indianapolis to stay on the schedule no matter how bad of a race it is, because it's Indianapolis. It's the oldest speedway in America, maybe minus the Milwaukee Mile. That's another old one, but it's such a historic place. I know a lot of the history goes to IndyCar there, but I don't see any harm in NASCAR being there. But I don't think you should be taking up the most American weekend of the year and putting it at Indianapolis, because NASCAR and Indianapolis do not go together like July 4th and apple pie. So July 4th and Indianapolis shouldn't go together. But what else are you going to put there if you're going to be moving Daytona to the cutoff race? Like Steve O'Donnell said, the drivers wanted. I don't really know why the drivers would want that, but I can see why. And if the drivers wanted it, that's the first place that the NASCAR officials, NASCAR executives should be listening, are the drivers, because technically they're the employees that put the show on the racetrack, and the drivers are happy, and the fans should be happy as well. So I don't necessarily like that decision, but that's what the drivers wanted. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Kentucky and New Hampshire are there, and I'm not a fan of this, but I kind of get it. You know, NBC has to shove their stupid Olympics right in your face, so, you know, I guess it's good that we don't have to, you know, watch NASCAR on the USA Network, which happened last time the Olympics were around, so we get 2 weeks off in a row. I find that a little interesting, but on the same side, I think it's a good thing. Kind of gets you ready for Michigan. I don't know how good Michigan will be by the time we get to August 9th, 2020, but, you know, I think it's a good idea to just push it out of the way for a little bit so you can let the Olympics roll by. And, you know, I'm one who absolutely hates the Olympics, so I don't care, but I do understand why NBC want to do that. And I think it does actually help NASCAR, because NASCAR's not trying to compete with the Olympics, and that helps with the ratings a little bit as well. We got Michigan, got Watkins Glen, nothing changing right there. They actually are both a couple weeks later in the schedule, but that's because of the 2-week break. And this is probably one of my least favorite decisions on this schedule, and I think a lot of people aren't talking about this, but I hate it. They switched Dover and Bristol, and I understand, you know, you want to have Bristol in the chase as a cutoff race, but I don't want to have the night race when I'm in school. I want it to be right at the end of the summer. I'm still, you know, on summer break. Of course, where I'm at, you know, by that time of year, you know, I'm still on summer break. A little bit different up here in Pennsylvania. I know down south people are already in school, so I guess it doesn't really matter too much for the people who are down in Bristol, because I know they start school down there like early August. But still, I hate this. I really do. Now, I actually don't mind Dover being where it is, but I don't like Bristol being where it is in September. It's going to compete with college football. I'm a huge college football fan. A lot of people are as well, and I don't think that's a good decision. But hey, it's Bristol. It's going to be a cutoff race, so it's going to be fun. But Dover being the penultimate race of the regular season, I find extremely interesting, and hardly anyone's talking about that one. I find it kind of odd, but Dover's a good place to have a summer race. I mean, I guess it is. I don't know. It gets really hot up here during the summer, so we'll have to see how that all goes down. But this is one that's really pushing a lot of people's buttons. Of course, we talk about Indianapolis going to July 4th, and the race it got replaced, or race it replaced, I should say, was the Firecracker 400. And that one, I can understand why people are upset, because that thing has been a July 4th race since its inception, and they decided to change it. I think I know how people felt when they moved Darlington a few years ago from Labor Day weekend, and I do not like it. I agree that this is one decision that people can be mad about. As much as I don't like the fans complaining, they have a right to complain about this one, because nobody really asked for it, I guess, except for the drivers, like Steve O'Donnell said. I'll believe him and say that the drivers wanted this, but none of us wanted it. Either way, it'll be fun. I don't think it's going to be a bad race. I don't think it's going to be a poorly attended race. But you could end up with a Category 5 hurricane during that time of year, so I really don't know what to tell you. That's not a good situation if you have one of those, because that's hurricane season down there in Florida. Actually, hurricane season here as well. Who am I kidding? But it's not the greatest decision, in my opinion. But I get it. You're going to have that super speedway as the cutoff race of the regular season. It sounds like something an NR 2003 guy would do. I don't think I've ever done that, though. I don't even have a chase anymore in my NR 2003 series, so why should I care? And then we get to the chase, and I think things get really good in the chase. A lot of people like the chase, which I'm glad people do. You go to Darlington to open up the chase. Hey, that's a great place. Richmond's there, and in Bristol, I mean, I think it is good for the chase. I don't like where it is time-wise on the schedule, but it is a place that I think is good as a chase race. And, I mean, look at the chase race. You got all three short tracks. You got Darlington now. That's a great place. Talladega, the Roval. Remember, you know, not too many years ago, just a couple of years ago, 5 of the races were 1.5 mile racetracks. Now, we only have 3. And we got a ton of short tracks and a lot bigger variety in the chase, which I do applaud NASCAR for listening to the fans and actually doing that. I think it's a great chase, actually. The second round, Vegas, Talladega, and the Roval. Roval's going to be at the cutoff race. Of course, it's a cutoff race in the first round last year. I think it's a cutoff race in the first round this year as well. And then Kansas, Texas, and Martinsville is the cutoff. I like that. How can you not like that? Martinsville really cashed in on this schedule, I'll tell you that much. And I'm glad they did. But here's one decision, and I think it makes a lot more sense hearing what Steve O'Donnell said in the announcement. He said that they wanted to rotate the finale race. And hearing that, it makes sense, because, you know, ISM Raceway is not really the most ideal place to hold a finale race as a racetrack, but as a market, it's a great place. And you got to think logistics here. No, I haven't been touching on that too much, but, you know, NASCAR wants to bring that finale race to different markets, and good markets as well. Phoenix is a huge market, and it's a pretty decently, you know, racing fan base area, if you know what I mean. And so I think it's a pretty good place to hold a finale race. It's not a guarantee for Harvick. It's not a guarantee for anyone. That fall Phoenix race is always crazy, and with it being the finale race, I think many different things will happen. Things will just be a lot different than it will be in a normal Phoenix race. So as long as they do actually rotate that finale race, like, hey, we could end up with Martinsville as the finale race next year, or Texas. Not anyone wants that, but I would like to see that finale race get, you know, shuffled around a little bit, mix it up, so it's not a guarantee like, you know, Homestead, that if you're not good at Homestead, well, you're not going to win the championship. It's a little bit different. I do feel bad for Homestead. I feel like that track didn't really get much of a say in this, but at the same time, I think it's a good idea to kind of start making these changes now to prepare for 2021. And who knows what we're going to see in 2021. So it's going to be good, because all these contracts are going to go away, and we can bring in these other racetracks in. That's why you don't see Gateway. That's why you don't see Iowa yet, because everyone was locked into a contract here, and only unless they added more races, which is something I do not believe they want to do, they're just not going to be on this year. But next year, you're going to see them, 2021. So watch out for that. I think 2021 is going to really be the breaking year. 2020 is setting up for the changes that we're going to see in 2021. And I think a lot of these changes were necessary to get the changes that we're going to want to see in 2021. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the schedule. Overall, it's not bad. The two things I really don't like is Daytona switching with Indy and Dover switching with Bristol. But, you know, it's just the way it is. I mean, if the drivers want Daytona as the finale of the regular season, then Daytona should be the finale of the regular season. Now, I don't know, you know, what the consensus was on that, but that's just the way it goes. That's just the way it goes, you know. I'll deal with it, and it'll be a fun race on that August 29th, 2020. It's going to be a fun Saturday night race at Daytona then. It's still going to technically be in the summer, at least for me. It'll be fun. That's all I got to say. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching and listening. This has been 9 Cents with your boy Napa Fan. Sorry, Nathan, I copied your outro there. Don't know why I said that. But yeah, that's the 2020 NASCAR schedule. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Please be civil and please use some common sense when discussing your thoughts. I would appreciate that because nobody else is doing that. And this is a common sense area, so please use common sense. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later.